Okay. All right. So if you can hear me, and if you can see me, and if you can see my screen, we can have some fun. We can have some intellectual fun. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the future of work. Obviously, we all pursue education for the sole purpose of trying to, earn a living, get a job, start a company, have a career. And that all comes down under what we will call the future of work. Now, if you think back just 30 years, that's not very long, maximum 30 years. Economists everywhere in the world were still categorizing jobs according to this old system. Agricultural jobs, manufacturing jobs, skilled jobs, unskilled jobs. 30 years ago, the world economy was very simple. And so the classification of employment was very simple. We live in a totally different world now, really complex, evolving so rapidly, it's hard to keep up. And one thing that has changed dramatically in the last 20, 30 years is our whole concept of work and our definitions of what are jobs. Think about this. More than half of all the job titles that exist today did not exist 20 years ago. That's more than 50% of all the job titles didn't exist 20 years ago. Think about e-commerce, think about social media, think about the aerospace industry, private exploration of space, think about electric vehicles, think about renewable energy. There are jobs and job titles in all those industries many years ago. And that's kind of scary, but it's also really exciting. So look, here is a modern classification of labor. And pay attention to this because you're in here. What we do now is we don't categorize people by whether they're agricultural workers, manufacturing. We look at what they actually do. What is the activity that they actually do in their jobs? And we can break this down into three categories, as you see here. Routine production, in-person services, and what we call symbolic analysts. Spoiler alert, you are symbolic analysts. Let's take a look at this. Routine production is jobs that are in manufacturing, well, not all of them, but many of them are in manufacturing, they're in construction, they're in transportation. And notice what I wrote on the bottom. These jobs require advanced skills, require basic skills. Think of transportation. If you're an Uber driver, you have some skills, but they're not particularly advanced. If, on the other hand, you are a pilot of a jumbo jet aircraft carrying 350 people, you are an extremely highly skilled worker. Now, the Uber driver, the jumbo jet pilot, they're both in the transportation industry. One is relatively unskilled and one is extremely highly skilled, but they have one thing in common. They are doing a routine service. Their job is to provide the routine service of transportation. It's the same in manufacturing and construction. There are a lot of highly skilled jobs. There's a lot of relatively low-skilled jobs, but more importantly, a lot of these jobs are routine. You're in a factory, right? They're again. These jobs are the jobs that are under the be here in a moment. The second kind of category is what we call in-person services. These are fundamentally different, okay? And again, some of them are very highly skilled and some of them are relatively low skilled. They're as I put here, some cleaning services, food services, personal services. Think of a trainer in a gym. Think of people who cut your hair and do manicures. Think of home repair. Think of car repair. What do they have in common? They have to literally be in person to do their service and earn their living, okay? You cannot cut someone's hair over Zoom, at least not yet. You cannot repair someone's car unless you put your hands on the car, right? You can't work in food service unless you're actually, putting the food in a dish and giving it to somebody. It's the same thing with cleaning services. If you're going to clean a hotel, clean a home, you have to physically go there and do that service in person. These jobs are not under threat as much as routine production jobs because there's a strong human element in there. It's very hard to have an algorithm, cut your hair, okay? An algorithm cannot clean your hotel, okay? So, and again, don't think these are just low-skilled jobs. If you are a technician working in a car repair shop with modern cars, you've had years of training, okay? You're actually very highly skilled because nobody just repairs their own modern car anymore, okay? And so some of these tend to be very highly skilled, some low skilled, but again, what they have in common is they have to be right in your face to cut your hair or put their hands on your car in order to repair it. The third category is the most interesting because it's us, right? It's us, it's all of you. It's what we call symbolic analysts. Let me explain exactly what we mean. If you're an accountant, you earn your money by manipulating symbols in your brain, numbers, and then you put those numbers onto documents like an income statement, a balance sheet, a financial report. And that's what you get paid money to do. But you're manipulating the symbols, in this case, numbers, in your brain, and then you're selling what's in your brain. You're selling those symbols and the relationships between those symbols to the market. That's what you get paid for. If you're a lawyer, you are manipulating symbols in your brain. We call them words. And then you put those words into a contract and you charge people money for the contract. You take those words in your brain, you go to a court and you make an argument on behalf of your client, okay? Architects have to think 3D. An architect sits down and thinks, what is this building going to look like? Height, width, depth? They think about it 3D. Now, they may use a computer program, computer-assisted design, CAD/CAM, okay? They may use a lot of really sophisticated 3D, literally 3D modeling nowadays, but they have to first get these symbols, the thought in their brain. What kind of a building? What's it going to look like? And then they translate that knowledge from their brain into a computer program that maybe produces a 3D model or prints out a big architectural schematic. Engineers, all scientists. It's the same with doctors and teachers. You go to the doctor, and the doctor has to take information into her brain, and she has to think, okay, what's really wrong with this person? And symbolic idea in her mind before she prescribes certain drugs for your problem or whatever it is she's going to do to help with a health problem. So all of us, including you guys, business managers, accountants, engineers, people who do marketing, people who do basic management, we're all earning our living through our intellect, okay, our brain, our intangible asset called our thought process. We process symbols, we turn symbols into ideas, and we sell ideas to people. And this is the this is where all the growth is in the modern economy. This is where job growth is. This is where industry growth is. This is where the future is. This is where investment is. It's all in these knowledge-based industries. Now, what has changed COVID, what has been changing over the last 20 years, as I put on the bottom of that slide, is that these services can be provided both in person, right? Like a doctor. You go to the doctor, doctor puts his hands on you to see if your arm is broken. But these services can also be provided remotely, and they are increasingly being provided remotely. Thanks to wearable medical sensors, to be precise, you now have a person we used to call a nurse, but now we call them a nurse statistician. And they're highly skilled. They got to be trained in statistics. Why? Because the nurse will sit at a computer screen, and there could be hundreds of patients of this doctor who have wearable sensors, right? You know, little sensors wearing outside or literally put under the skin. And what are those sensors doing? They're measuring blood pressure, heart rate. They're measuring blood sugar if you're a diabetic. They're measuring it 24/7. They're sending that information real time to a computer in the doctor's office, where the nurse, who now is not only a highly skilled nurse, but is also trained in IT, how to organize and manipulate data and do some statistical analysis. And that nurse is taking that information, deciding, you know, what's routine and what's a problem, and then passing the problem cases off to the doctor. The doctor might then contact you online, literally through Zoom, or in the case of my doctor in Washington, D.C., he has his own platform. We communicate, you know, through his own personal platform. And the doctor will, because, you know, you might be 100 miles away. I'm thousands of miles away from my doctor, doesn't matter, okay? So, and it's the same thing with teachers, not just because of COVID, but the move to most teaching will always be done best in person, because we're a social species, right? We're social species. Human beings, we like to be together. We like to be in a group. We like to shake each other's hands and look each other in the eye and brainstorm, okay? So that part of teaching is never going to go away, but teaching remotely is going to be for lifetime education. As full-time students, we're full-time employees and full-time parents, and now we have to educate ourselves constantly forever. But now we're 38, we're 48, we're 58 years old. We only have a little time at night. How do we stay current with knowledge in our profession? We study online. Okay, and this is done all the time now by professional people. Okay, now here comes something that's not intended to terrify you, but it could. Let's look at the risk of job loss. I told you this was going to be a fun seminar. Let's look at the risk of job loss. All right. If you have a job that is in routine production, I don't care if you're an airline pilot, an Uber driver, a factory worker, if your job is routine, you have a high probability, you have a high risk of losing your job. Not because the job itself is going to go away. We are always going to need people to fly airplanes and drive cars. We won't have 100% autonomous transportation. We'll have autonomous transportation, it won't be 100%. But it's just that the number of jobs in this routine category, the number of jobs is going to be reduced. So the job will continue to exist, but instead of maybe millions of people, it could literally shrink down to thousands of people. So those jobs are at high risk, and they're at high risk from international competition. Okay, you know, if you're a factory in America and you have people just producing some routine product, Well, it's very easy for you to be replaced by a factory in Mexico or Ukraine or wherever. Okay. In-person services. These are moderate to high risk for job loss because it depends on what kind of a job you're talking about. Okay. You know, if think about this, we're going to always need doctors. But you know, if technology is coming along and a doctor who used to be able to handle a maximum of, say, 50 clients, well, you know, thanks to technology, that doctor can handle 500 clients now. Okay, the example I just gave you of Internet of Things, wearable sensors, and okay, which means we'll need less doctors. It means we'll simultaneously have much, much better healthcare, more people in the world, especially people in rural areas where there are no doctors and hospitals, and access to nurses. But technology, ironically, will actually start to reduce the number of doctors we actually need. So there is some moderate risk here. Some of this is high risk. If you are in retail sales, you're at a high risk of losing your job because of the explosive growth in e-commerce. So basic, what we call bricks and mortar retail sale, right? It's in person. You walk into the store and you buy something, and the cashier and the salesperson. Those jobs are going away because of e-commerce. Symbolic analysts, well, we have moderate to high risk of some of these jobs shrinking as well. You know, if you are an appraiser, okay, to use the American term, or in Ukraine we call them valuers. Okay, I have a company that's an appraisal firm. There are algorithms now that, let's say you were an appraiser and your job was to appraise the retail value, the market value of apartments in Kiev. And for years and years, that's what you did. You appraised the market value of apartments in Kiev. Well, there are now algorithms that can completely replace you, okay? You might do 2 or 3 appraisals a day, but there are algorithms that'll do 200 or 300 a minute, and they'll do them faster, and they'll do them more accurately, and they'll do them a lot cheaper. So even though being an appraiser is a very highly skilled job, a lot of these appraisal jobs are going away. And the appraisal jobs that are going away are the routine jobs. The routine job of appraising a typical residential apartment, right? But the appraisal of unique assets like a port or a factory, okay, or a bank, these can't be appraised yet, maybe never, by computer algorithms because they're unique assets. They're very complex. They're unique. It's not like apartments. You know, there's millions and millions of similar apartments, but every port and every factory is actually unique. So you're still going to need appraisers to do that kind of appraisal work, but we won't need as many of them. Okay. Now, I promised this was going to be fun. So before you get all depressed about all this job loss, here's the good news. And it really is good news. Okay. Yes, there will be a very few types of job that will simply go away. And that's a good thing because these are very dangerous jobs. These are very unhealthy, dirty jobs. And it's great to replace some of these jobs with technology because people don't need to do some of these really dangerous jobs, okay? There will be some reduction in total employment in certain types of jobs. But what we have learned in the last 30 years of this great technology is that we are creating more jobs than we're losing. And we are modifying every job in the world. There is no job in the world that if you were doing that job even 10 years ago, much less 20 or 30, but even 10 years ago, there's not a single job in the world that anybody was doing 10 years ago that hasn't been modified by technology, modified by the new economy in which we're living, modified mainly technologically. So the good news is that there's going to be a lot more new jobs, and there's going to be a modification of existing jobs, but there's a catch. Let's take an example before I tell you the catch. Here's a photograph, not very old. I'm going to tell you that's maximum 10 years old. And what is this? This is a simple example, but it's a powerful example. This is an automobile assembly line. And there are two people who are welding, okay? The job of welding is routine, but it will never go away because as long as we need to take two pieces of metal and make those two pieces of metal stick together, we have to weld them. And this is what welding in a very sophisticated American automobile factory looked like maybe just 10 years ago. Look at that. The men are, men or women, you can't tell, they're in all this protective gear, and there's all the sparks flying, and it's got to be hot, and they're surrounded by all of this equipment, and it looks sophisticated, but it actually isn't, because it's being operated by hands. It's probably pneumatic air pressure is the source of energy to drive that equipment, and that doesn't look very good to me. Here is what that exact same, here's what a modern, as of today, automobile assembly line looks like when you get to the welding part. It looks like this. Pretty cool. Now, what is missing in this picture? People.
Peoples.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, by the way, we have to do our fun discussion the American way. And the American way is if you have a question, a comment, you unmute your mic and you just speak your piece. That's the American way.
Okay.
Hey, cool. All right. Everybody, but don't everybody speak at once. But look, seriously, there are no people in there. That is not a bad thing. Okay? That's a good thing. Just because we don't see people doesn't mean there aren't jobs. Think about this. Somebody had to design those robots. And remember, what is a robot? A robot is just a physical thing that has an algorithm inside of it, right? You have an algorithm, and the algorithm manages the robot, and it tells it what to do, okay? So you have the software, you have the hardware. Somebody had to design that hardware. Somebody had to build that hardware. Somebody had to install it. Somebody has to maintain it. Somebody has to repair it. Software, a computer scientist had to figure out what is a robot capable of doing, and then programmers had to come behind the computer scientist and write code to make the robot do what the computer scientist figured out the robot could do. That's a heck of a lot of jobs. That's a lot of jobs, and they're jobs that didn't exist before. And all of those jobs are very highly skilled jobs. And many, many of those jobs are being held by the same factory workers that we saw in that earlier picture that were there welding. Well, those guys didn't get fired, but they did get upskilled. They did have to increase their skills, learn new skills, and move into a different area. The fastest growing jobs in America today are wind turbine engineers and solar energy panel engineers. People who design and produce solar and wind, who install solar and wind, who maintain it, who repair it. Last year in the United States, we created more new jobs just in wind energy than all the jobs that exist in the entire coal mining industry. That's why we don't care that coal is dying. We want coal to die. We don't want people to work in coal mines. It's dirty, it's dangerous, it's unhealthy. We want to get those workers out of the coal mines and get them working on solar energy. and wind energy. And of course they can. As a society, we have to figure out how do we upskill them, how do we multi-skill them. But that can be done if we as a society dedicate ourselves to doing that. So when you look in here and you don't see people, that's a good thing. You don't see people out there, eating sparks. But behind those robots are a vast number of jobs and people doing jobs that are better and smarter. Okay. Now, one last thing before we move on. Here we've been talking about changes to jobs within existing models of employment, right? By a model, I mean, the people who work in an automobile factory, that's an old corporate model. You have a factory, or you have a government ministry, or you have a school, or right? This is this traditional model of employment where you go to work, a single person goes to work for a single employer, they get a paycheck, and maybe they work 30 years and retire, okay? But it's a single person with a single employer and a single source of money called their salary. This has changed radically also, and we have to figure out as a society, and you and me, we have to figure out how to deal with this. And we call it the gig economy. What this is these are workers, this is anybody whose work is on call, it's temporary, it's based on a contract or a project, right? You get a contract is over, you don't have any work, you get another contract. It's independent entrepreneurs, okay? By the way, I have been an independent entrepreneur for the last, I won't tell you how many years, but some years. And it's a great way to make a living. This is a really radical change. It's everywhere in the world. It's in Ukraine, it's in America, it's everywhere. This gig economy is a different model of employment. It's not just different jobs, it's a different model of employment. And to give you an idea of the scale of this, 43% of the total US workforce, we have a very large workforce, a country of 320 million people, and 43% of our total workforce now do not have traditional employment. One employer, you work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. No. 43% of our workforce are independent entrepreneurs. They're working they get temporary employment. And again, we have a tendency to think of the gig economy as Uber drivers. Far from it, absolutely far from it. 40% of all of this, 40% of the 43% are symbolic analysts. They're doctors, lawyers, accountants, professors, they're just working independently. They have their own small business, or they're an independent entrepreneur. They get hired by the course, they get hired by the contract, they get hired by the project. When it's over, they have to go find another one, okay? So this different model of employment, it's a big challenge. It's a challenge for you, it's a challenge for me, but it's also a big challenge for society, because it gives more independence to people. It puts you in control of your life. You can actually make more money this way if you're clever, okay? And you don't have a single source of income. You can have, like I do, I have probably 10 sources of income on any given day, depending on what clients I have in what company and so on. The problem for society, however, is that people working in this gig economy, they have no health insurance. They have no pension. If they, get injured on the job, they don't have any government support workers' compensation, we call it in America. This is a big societal problem, okay? And, it's not a good idea to not have health insurance and to not have life insurance and to not have a pension plan. And every country is struggling with how do we bring these aspects of traditional employment, health insurance and a pension plan, how do we bring those aspects of traditional employment into a non-traditional model of employment that's not going away, it's only going to get bigger. When I talk about this subject a year from now, it probably won't be 43% of the US workforce, it'll probably be 53, and on it goes. So we have to think about that individually, but we have to also think about that as a society. Okay, take everything I've told you, whether it's, I don't know, exciting or depressing, but take everything I've told you. And here is the solution for the future of work, for you and for me, for everybody. And the future of work is simply this: it's lifelong education. Professor Klintz even mentioned that in his remarks. Like it or not, lifelong education. You're going to stay with us for 4 years and get a bachelor's degree. You might get a master's degree. Some of you might get a PhD. But let me tell you something. When you're 28, 38, 48, 58, 68, people live almost forever nowadays. And the economy is changing so that symbolic analysts, by the way, can work forever. I mean, as long as you can use a computer, you can work. You can be 108. Who cares? Okay? As long as your brain is working, you can earn a living. So lifelong education is never going to go away. And here's what this is going to look like. I'm going to put these up and I'm going to tell you a quick little personal story. Every one of us, whether we like it or not, whether we want to or not, we have no choice. Every one of us has to constantly be upskilled and multi-skilled. And I'll give you an example to explain this in a minute. Every one of us has to be multidisciplinary and we have to be interconnected. And finally, we have to be versatile and adaptable. Let me tell you a personal story so this will make sense. When I finished my graduate degree programs, I had degrees in environmental economics and international finance. That's what I thought I was going to do. I thought, well, I'll get a job in international finance. I'll get a job in working in environmental economics. And it didn't work out that way. I got offered a really great job. I got offered the opportunity to be the head of a new research program in the United States government. But what was I supposed to do? What kind of research? It was international economic research of the world mining industry, mining and processing, iron and chromium and steel and all of these minerals, copper and magnesium. And I was supposed to work with a group of scientists under my supervision, and we were supposed to tell the US government, this is every copper mine in the entire world. And this is what it costs to produce copper and process copper and transport copper. And that's really cool, except I knew absolutely nothing about the minerals industry. Mineral economics is a different branch of economics. I studied environmental, and now I'm in the antithesis of environmental. I'm in mineral economics. So what did I do? I upskilled myself. Sadly, there was no internet then. So I ran off to the Colorado School of Mines. Luckily, I was living in Colorado. I started reading textbooks. I started reading articles. I did not, so that I could understand mineral economics and what made mineral economics different from environmental economics. At the same time, I was supposed to do a synthesis of research from a group of about 40, 50 scientists. These scientists were geologists, mining engineers, metallurgical engineers, and I knew absolutely nothing about mining engineering and geology and metallurgical engineering. How can I supervise them? How can I synthesize their knowledge with my knowledge into coherent reports for the United States government when I myself don't know anything about those subjects? Well, what did I do? I went out and I got myself multi-skilled. I did not go get degrees in geology, mining engineering, but I made sure to learn what I call what we call a working level of knowledge, meaning that I trained myself to understand geology, understand mining engineering, understand metallurgical engineering well enough to be able to work with a group of scientists, organize them, do the research, synthesize the research into a report, and have it be coherent. Okay, at least I hope it was coherent. So there I was, first thing out of college, boom. My skills had no market value. Suddenly I had to be upskilled, mineral economics, I had to be multi-skilled, mining engineering, geology, all that stuff. This multidisciplinary and interconnected, same thing. I had to take a multidisciplinary, I had to teach myself, I had to learn by trial and error, how to take a multidisciplinary group of scientists and bring them together into an interconnected team to do the work that we were ordered by the government to do. Those are all in. Now, during my career, I've spent in America, whether it's education, government, my own private businesses, okay? And I keep jumping back and forth between education and business, the government, education, business. I've lived and worked, I don't know, 30, 40 countries, teaching there, doing for-profit business there, doing some government work there. I had to develop some psychological skills to succeed, in fact, to survive. I had to become psychologically versatile and psychologically adaptable so that I could come to, say, a country like Ukraine, where I came over here. Fortunately, I have succeeded. But to do that, I had to come into a new cultural zone, right? An entirely new cultural milieu for me. I mean, I had lived and worked in Mongolia, Indonesia, South Africa, okay, but I'd never been to Ukraine. And so fortunately, somehow I have learned in my life to be psychologically versatile, psychologically adaptable. And you guys must do the same thing, because the world now is so much more global. It's really global. And you're going to be dealing with people all over the world, and you're going to be dealing with projects and businesses, different cultures all over the world. And this psychological part of your education is really important. Be versatile, be adaptable. Okay, something else that is really, really crucial. I hear people worry all the time, oh my God, all the jobs are being replaced by algorithms, and automation and technologies replacing all these jobs. I just gave some examples, right? Right? The factory worker, the appraiser. Fortunately, human economy, right? You're going to study a lot of economics here. Human economy is based on human beings. Human economy are human beings doing things with each other, interacting in a million different ways. And that the human aspects of work can never be replaced by automation, by algorithms, okay, by the Internet of Things. Those are just tools, okay? Those are tools, all right? So the best way to defend yourself against job loss or job reduction as the world continues to rapidly evolve technologically is to develop your human skills. And there's 4 of them. We'll put them up here and you take a look at them. Creativity, cooperation, communication, critical thinking. Okay, a woman can wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, oh, I have this great idea. I'm going to build a reusable rocket that's going to go into outer space and then it's going to come down and land on a little platform. A man can do that too. That's what Elon Musk did. That's creativity. An algorithm doesn't wake up at 2 a.m. and say, hey, I have a new idea. I'm gonna build a reusable rocket that goes into the space, and then it's gonna come down and land on a tiny little platform floating in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, algorithms don't cooperate, okay? They cooperate in a one-dimensional way, okay? Your database feeds information to an algorithm that calculates and feeds to another and to another, but it's one-dimensional, it's linear. Cooperate, multi-dimensional, right? Body language, it's what you don't say that's more important than what you say. It's how you don't say what you don't say. You sit together, you get several people sitting together, and they'll be talking about something, and then a completely different idea will just pop up seemingly out of nowhere. That's what we call brainstorming. But only bringing those people together in this, intimate human reaction where you can see people and read people and talk to people, and suddenly creative ideas come popping up out of this cooperation. Okay, our tools, whether it's a hammer or machine learning algorithms, they don't do that. And they don't communicate like that either, okay? We communicate multidimensionally, we cooperate multidimensionally. And finally, we have critical thinking. Now, I know I'm a big fan of machine learning. I try to study it as much as I can. And machines do learn. You feed them data and they learn, okay? IBM created Deep Blue that learned how to chess so well, it learned how to defeat Garry Kasparov. But that's not the kind of critical thinking, because a machine cannot be self-critical. Human beings can be self-critical. We can postulate hypotheses and try to disprove them. We can critique our own work. We can critique in a positive, supportive way our colleagues' work, okay? So this critical thinking is really powerful. And if you work to develop these kinds of human skills, you're going to be really successful. The more you develop these human skills, on top of the fundamental skills we will help you to learn. We will help you to learn finance and statistics and human resource management and marketing. We're going to help you with all that fundamental stuff. But that fundamental stuff, it's like a hammer and a saw. These are counting as a powerful tool. But those tools have no value unless you bring them symbolically into your brain, and unless you learn. You have to teach yourself how to be creative, how to cooperate, how to communicate, how to have critical thinking. So here's the really, really good news, okay? This is the future of work, okay? Okay, this is the future of work. This is the future of work right now, today. It is a team of people who are working together. There's creativity there, there's cooperation there, there's communication there, and there's critical thinking as a team.
Sorry, can I say one thing?
Yes, please, jump in.
We have in Ukraine a very good quotation in this way, that 2 heads is better than 1 head.
Yes.
That it's very important to cooperate with something.
Sure. Perfect comment, because here's my response to that. Not only are 2 heads better than 1, but you take 5 heads and you end up with an exponential growth in knowledge, because every one of the people that you see there, and pay attention to the diversity, that's the modern world. Every one of those people, if those people are constantly upskilled, okay? I don't know how old those people are, 18, 48, 68, who knows? If those people are constantly upskilled and multi-skilled, if they are, multi-dimensional, okay, multidisciplinary, and with their working knowledge, and they're interconnected between different spheres of knowledge and different spheres of business, so that each one of them is a multidimensional, powerful human intellectual asset. And then you bring 5 of them together, augmented with lots of really cool toys, lots of tools, lots of advanced algorithms and laptops and you name it. But you bring together 5 people who are upskilled, multi-skilled, multidisciplinary. They're on the cutting edge today of everything they need to know, no matter what their age is. You bring them together in a team who start thinking critically and working critically together. And this is how you get, this is how Elon Musk got a rocket that would go into space and then come back down and land on a little platform in the ocean. He did that because he was able to bring together brilliant people who had cutting edge skills. And he didn't bring together, 18-year-olds. He didn't bring together 88-year-olds. He brought people of all different ages and races and nationalities, but they all had one thing in common. Their skills were current. They were skills as of today. And they had those psychological skills. They believed in themselves. They believed in the capability of their team. They were versatile. They were adaptable. And they had all those fundamental skills current today. And that's how they succeeded.
Can I comment
please.
on that, please? Yeah, I think also that the benefit of critical thinking as a team is that people get to critique and discuss each other's ideas to filter their thoughts and help each other understand better what their idea is. So, like when one person thinks about something, he only thinks about it from his own perspective. But when 5 people talk about something, they all combine their perspectives and they get something that is better for everyone.
Well spoken. I agree 100%. That is exactly how modern teamwork works today. Because again, remember, you guys are all symbolic analysts. So you're not going to sit around and think, how do I take a big hammer and smash a stone? You're going to be sitting around thinking, how do we create a new business? How can we create a human need, right? How can we create a sustainable business? You could be in the aerospace industry, the biotech industry. You're going to be thinking about thoughts that haven't been thought of before. And it might sound a little funny to say that, but again, just think back 20 years, think back 30 years, 1990, no internet, no social media, no e-commerce. There certainly was no private sector exploration of space and serious plans to build colonies on the moon and Mars. There were no electric vehicles. Right? There was no solar energy. There was no wind energy. All of these ideas had to start as completely insane ideas. Can you imagine how many people must have told Elon Musk that he's completely mad? He's completely insane. What? You're going to create an automobile industry with electric cars to compete against Honda, Toyota, Ford, Chevrolet? Are you insane? What, you're going to build rockets that go up into the sky and come back and land? Can you imagine how many people told Steve Jobs he was completely insane, right? I mean, he started with a small team of people in his garage producing the very first really clunky, funny looking, personal computer. And every time he would come up with a new product, the iPad and the iPhone and the this and that, I'm sure a million people were telling him, you're completely insane. It can't be done. It's impossible. But of course it isn't, because as Nelson Mandela said, one of my favorite quotes, everything is impossible until it happens. The internet is impossible. Everything was impossible.
So it can be like kind of resource from the brainstorming.
Yes.
Like you haven't said about it, but it's pretty obvious that in modern economy, in modern groups, it's kind of valuable resource when people gather and just write down their ideas that came up. Maybe it's one of the lead of Elon Musk.
Right, but how do I say this? If 5 really stupid people sit down together, you know, they can brainstorm all they want. You know, they're not going to come up with anything too exciting. But if 5 people sit down and through their hard work and their dedication to their own lifelong education, they have made sure that they have all the fundamental skills, all the advanced skills, everything is up to date, and they've added additional knowledge in different fields of specialization, and they've learned how to be really creative and how to cooperate. They've learned how to be versatile, okay, and adaptable. You bring those kinds of people together, and wow, there's nothing that you can't do. And you see, this is the people you are, and this is the people you will increasingly be as you go next and the next, and you do internships and you create for a business or the government or the social sector. You will be these people, and you have to be this kind of a person, because if you're not, the economy is going to leave you behind. Okay, you don't want to be the person who's losing their job. You want to be the person who's creating new jobs.
And the very inspiring thing about what you just said is that 20 years ago, people didn't know that today there are going to be jobs like there are today, just whatever. There are a lot of jobs and industries that just weren't thought of 20 years ago, generally. And there, in 20 years from now, there will be it will be the same situation, right? And we can be the people who create those jobs and those new products and technologies. That's just the inspiring thing about it.
Right. You know, you touched on something, because you mentioned the future. Okay, I keep saying, oh, think back 20 years, 30 years. You touched on something extremely important, the future. My goodness, if half the jobs today, half the jobs by job title today didn't exist 20 years ago, my goodness, what about 20 years in the future? Well, the only way to give yourself confidence that you'll always have a job, you'll always be successful, you'll always be contributing something to society as well as being successful, is to, again, just make sure you're dedicated to lifelong education. You're gonna just tell yourself, I've had to do this. I had to tell myself, I will learn whatever I have to learn. Okay, whatever I have to learn to do the job, to succeed, I'll learn how to do that. Okay, so that's really kind of crucial. Think about this. Okay, this is a little thought picture I like to hold in my mind. Think about technological change as a big, hungry tiger, right? And there you are, looking that big, hungry tiger in the face. Now, what are you going to do? You can't fight the tiger. He's too strong. You can't run away and try to hide from the tiger, because he's too fast and he's got a great nose and he'll find you. So the only thing you can do is just take a deep breath, believe in yourself, and jump up onto the back of that tiger of technological change, and just hang on and start riding that tiger. Okay, ride that tiger. And it may sound kind of, I don't know, funny and silly, but if you think about it, that's that's literally what technological change is. You know, you can't fight it, you can't run away from it. So just jump on the back of it like it's a tiger and learn to ride that tiger. Okay. I don't know when I thought of that, but trust me, there's been a million times in my life where I've sat down, you know, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I just say, hey, man, ride that tiger. Just ride that tiger, you know? Cool.
It's a very good example. I like it.
Well, thank you. A lot of people find my animal examples to be kind of silly, but I love it.
Also, you can elaborate that if you're just going to sit in front of the tiger, it will eventually eat you.
Yeah, well, I told you we were going to have fun. And what's more fun than tiger stories, okay? All right, okay, by the way, we're a school, and this is supposed to be a lecture, a seminar. I don't like the word lecture. So we have to have a quiz, all right? And we have a one question quiz. And the quiz is, you see the people in that picture, those 5 people? What are they working on? And I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna give you the answer, okay? Because your teachers won't give you the answer, but I'll give you the answer. Those people are working on this. They are literally working on the next big thing. And whoever jumped in to talk about what about the next 20 years, brilliant comment. That's what we're all working on, whether we realize it or not. Whether we realize it or not. You're studying accounting. Yeah, but you're actually working on the next big thing, because maybe you won't start your own business, but maybe you'll go to work for a company in 4 years that doesn't exist today, because the big thing that they created to create a company doesn't exist today. So we're all working on the next big thing. And seriously, just keep big thoughts in your mind. Never hold small thoughts in your mind. Just keep big thoughts in your mind. You're working on the next big thing. Nobody's working on small things anymore. All right, we're going to end with this, because I want you to just take a look at that. I'll leave. If you were to ask me, by the way, I could have put 20 or 30 bullets, but these were the first ones that came to mind. What are the industries of the future? All right. Now, a couple quick things. We got a few minutes. You see manufacturing. You say, well, gee, manufacturing, how can that be an industry of the future? Well, it's an industry of today. It's an industry of the future because we have to manufacture things. But think about this. Everything is interconnected. Remember I said multidisciplinary and interconnected? Everything is interconnected. You cannot talk about manufacturing without talking about robotics, which is certainly an industry of the future. You can't talk about construction without talking about 3D printing. We have companies now. There's companies, a couple of companies I know of, for example, in the Netherlands. They go out and they literally 3D print an entire house. And I don't mean a tiny dollhouse. I mean like a real 3D bathroom house. They 3D print everything. The walls, the plumbing, they 3D print the entire house. And they take an entire house that may have taken, 6 months to build, and they do it in 2 or 3 days. They just literally 3D print right there. You can't think about, healthcare. By the way, notice here I've got education, healthcare, food and nutrition. Okay, these are the basic fundamentals of life, right? You human beings not just to have a civilization, but to be alive, we have to have housing, think construction. We have to have food. We have to have healthcare. We have to have education. We have to have entertainment. Okay, human beings need entertainment. We have to have transportation. So if you focus just on healthcare and you think interconnections, you can't talk about healthcare anymore without talking about biotechnology, synthetic biology, information technology. Remember Internet of Things and the wearable sensors, okay? And machine learning and information technology affect every industry I've listed there, okay? And again, you can't talk information technology. We're on Zoom, right? So all of these industries, they're all interconnected. And if you're going to be a business manager, a CEO, or a manager of some business, if you're going to be the CFO of a business, chief financial officer, you have to know that business. How can you do marketing for a pharmaceutical company if you don't know anything about biotechnology, right? How can you be the CFO of a healthcare company if you don't know anything about synthetic biology? How can you be the CFO of an agribusiness if you don't know about food and nutrition? I don't mean just growing crops. I mean food and nutrition. And just about every industry, you got to know something about logistics. We all have these really complicated global supply chains. That gets you back again to information technology, machine learning, transportation. All of these things are completely interconnected, and we have to know something, significantly something, working knowledge of all of these industries. Okay, I've spent a lot of time lately studying about robotics and studying about 3D printing because I understand is that you know 3D printing is fascinating. We're now 3D printing human organs. We're 3D printing a human ear if someone loses their ear. We're 3D printing kidneys. We're 3D printing houses, and you know. So I've been studying up on that because that's going to affect everything. So think about that, because you're going to end up in some kind of employment. Again, whether you go to the government sector, that's cool. Go to the private business sector, go to the social sector. I hope a lot of you go to work in the social sector because we got a lot of social issues that need solving. Wherever you go to work, you're going to be dealing with these industries. They're going to be there. And with that, I've conveniently run out of time. So I will stop. If there's any more questions, comments, we can continue. Otherwise, we can call it a day and hope for graduation.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I have one quick question for you, or really just something I wanted to add to this. I think it's important in today's day and age, since there are so many different interconnecting like practices and industries that we need to know about, that it's not just important to know all of these yourself, because it's so many that we can't know all of these ourselves, but it's important to be able to build a network of people around you who might know things that you don't know, which ties into that interconnected like teamwork aspect you were talking about as well.
Yes, I completely agree. And let me, yeah, I completely agree. It's all networking. It's all interconnectedness. When I do, there's some projects I'll do in Ukraine, for example, you know, for, I don't know, 12 years, I was doing all the appraisal work for Ukernafta, the state oil company. And every time I had to do the appraisal work, I would go find a guy who was an expert in oil field equipment, because I'm not, you know. So yeah, you got to be interconnected. But think of that phrase I use, working knowledge. You certainly don't, it's impossible to be an expert in everything. I mean, you know, we're going to be lucky to be an expert in one thing. But you know, if we're going to interconnect and work with someone with a different skill set, they need to know something about our skill sets, and we need to know something about their skill sets so we can communicate effectively. I will defer to the expertise of people in certain areas where I don't have expertise, but I can't work with them effectively unless I've educated myself at least, you know, this much. Remember my example of geology, mining engineering, metallurgical engineering. I had to learn enough to where I could communicate with them. So when they were trying to explain something to me, I could actually understand it. Okay, you know, but they were the ones who did that specialist work, but I had to learn enough to understand. And that's part of the lifelong learning process. But your point is absolutely perfect. And today it's essential. You work in a network, the bigger the network is the network, the better. And that's how you're going to succeed in your business career. Cool.
Okay, Mr. Paul, I have one question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Can you please explain your point of view more deeply about the healthcare topic? Because as for me, I personally think that that is completely automizable topic, because actually you can just explain to, I don't know, some robot or in the internet, for example, what hurts actually, and just by algorithms, you will have the answer. So because as for me, doctors just analyze information that was given to them and just give you an answer based on the basic knowledge, so which can be completely automatable.
Yes. The short answer is yes. The example of a doctor, the short answer is yes. Much, maybe even most of what a doctor does that is routine can be managed by taking data from wearable sensors and processing it and analyzing it, you know, through an algorithm, and the algorithm can even then give you a prescription. So if it's really routine, but you know, sometimes a person is really sick and they don't know why. They don't, you know, I mean, and the data that the doctor's getting doesn't make any sense. So the person then comes to the doctor face to face, and through something called human empathy, critical thinking, the doctor begins to figure out what your problem is. Now, this is what you're saying is absolutely correct. And I think this is really wonderful. This is really cool. I want all of the routine tasks medicine to be as automated as we possibly can. Now, remember, the algorithms can only do what we teach them to do. And even when it comes to machine learning, we have to program the learning function into the machine so that it can learn, right? I mean, you know, machines don't just wake up and learn. So, so the more we can take anything that's routine, whether it's education, by the way, whether it's healthcare or manufacturing, and we can use tools and, you know, sophisticated tools, algorithms to do it faster, do it cheaper, do it better, make the service available to everyone in the planet, not just rich people, right? Not just people in Europe, but people everywhere in the world. That's a really, really, really good thing. And so all of these jobs are going to be enhanced, we should say, but you'll never be able to take the human being out of human society. Can't take the human being out of human economy. You just give the human beings more sophisticated tools and more space, you know, more space to research and innovate and fail and try again. And so it's a great world.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
You hear me well?
Hello.
Yes, I have a question for you. You told about CFO, yes, and I have a question. Who is CFO and what is difference from SEO?
A difference from?
From SEO, like
CEO, he means CEO.
CEO,
Yes, students, I think that you will study that during our business English. Tomorrow we will have first lesson and you will speak very deep about what is the difference between Chief Executive Officer or CEO and other type of
Financial officer.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Sorry, may I interfere? I want to add some information about our previous topic about healthcare. May I?
Please, please, please.
I want to tell you my point that nowadays we have some kind of artificial intelligence that can tell you by your symptoms what sickness do you have, but they don't work properly. Like if you have like simple symptoms of fever, it can tell you that you have some like deadly disease, and
that's why you can't take the human being out of medicine.
Yeah, and moreover, there are some diseases that even human doctors cannot tell from others, and they don't know what to do. And I don't think that possibly the computer can possibly go further beyond the human being, because even we humans just don't know everything, so we cannot give this information to computer bases and
Yes.
so on and so forth.
Yeah, a great point, because I'm looking at Natalia. I think we're going to have to finish. Listen, that's a really, really, really powerful point. Our tools, in this case, we keep talking, as we should, about advanced algorithm capabilities. Our tools cannot be smarter than us because we're the ones that created them. So you know, they can't be smarter than us. They can do things faster than us, but only routine things, okay? But in the end, any tool, and again, the example of the doctor in medicine is perfect. Any of these tools, they can help the doctor to reach more people and do things faster and do things cheaper. But ultimately, that doctor has to make the call, as we say. That doctor has to look at what his tools are telling him or her and decide, I don't agree with what that algorithm just told me. You know, so set that aside, bring that person in here so I can put my hands on them and you know, be a doctor like in the old days. So yeah, it's a trade-off. We need the tools. We need the tools to be advanced. They're going to keep evolving because human intelligence. With that last little thought, all of this, we talk about the miracle of all this technological change, this explosive growth in technology. Well, but that's the effect. The cause is an explosive growth in human intellectual and psychological capabilities. We you know, the last 30 years, we have evolved mentally and psychologically a lot, which is how we're able to create these magical tools and kind of set them free to be independent thinking machines. We have those symbols in our brain, and then we went out and created algorithms and robots and solar panels and rockets that go up and come back and land. So when people talk to you about technological change, what they're really saying is human intellectual and psychological change, psychological and intellectual evolution and advancement. We're the ones that are getting better, not the tools. We get better and our tools get better. And now hopefully we can take us and our tools and through concepts like, you know, sustainability, social justice, we can figure out not only how to do more things and better and cheaper. We can figure out how to solve all of our human problems, and I know we will. And that's your homework assignment. Go out and figure out how to solve every social problem, and we will. And I have to stop talking because my dean is looking at me.
Yeah, and I try to stop because I know that you're one of the great speakers and usually we have a lot of different questions. Thank you, dear students, for your attention. Thank you, dear Paul, for your excellent presentation. We know exactly that this topic is very actual today. Thank you for all your time. And also, dear students, I want to say for you, thank you for your attention and for your great questions. But also, I want to say that when you use Zoom conference, please, first of all, write your name and surname here because we want to see who speaks. And also, when you try to ask something, also represent yourself because we also want to know who asked. And also, we should know who will respond for them. And maybe that's all for today. So prepare your essay. Now you can open your Moodle system and find that subject which called Principles of Entrepreneurship. There you can find some information what you should do and how to do. And we will wait for this essay 10 days, as Lyubov have already said. So everything you can find at the Moodle system. Thank you for your attention and see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. See you tomorrow.